Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cosmic Portal. So today we're at the movies, you and I. We are going to be talking about the movie Supergirl. So Supergirl came out last Friday, June 24th, and it is a continuation from the Superman 2025 movie. Now, the thing I noticed that we have not had a Supergirl movie, I think, since 1984. 84. So it has been 42 years since we've had a Supergirl. Now this one kind of picks up a little bit where Superman ends, but we get Kara Zor-El. She's doing her thing off world. Um, we also get Lobo in this movie as well. We have Crypto the dog, and we have another supporting cast who's actually trying to deal with her own issues throughout this movie. So I have to say, we have seen this movie twice now. I enjoyed it, but I want to have my wife say how she felt about it. What did you think when you saw this
Well, the first time we saw it in Adobe, and then when we saw it the other night,
last night?
last night?
Yep.
When we saw it last night, we watched it in IMAX. I know after the movie, I was, asking Mark. I don't know if it was just the IMAX theater, but it didn't really look IMAXy for me. So for me, I enjoyed the movie a lot better in the Adobe. I can't remember the very last movie I saw at IMAX, but I do have to mention that I did compare it to Star Trek 2009 that I did see in Adobe and IMAX, and I feel like the IMAX, it was of course it was at a different theater, but I saw the IMAXness and it made me say, "Ooh, the screen was big." Kind of feel that way when I saw it at EMC. I kind of felt, I didn't really see the difference between the Adobe too much and the IMAX, and that's kind of could have just been the theater or could have just been me. Um, Watching a movie twice so soon, I think I kind of nitpick it the second time. There's a few things that I noticed the second time around that I didn't notice the first time around. So, kind of felt the same way when we saw Star Wars, the last movie, um, because it was so soon that things I didn't notice and I'm nitpicking. So, I kind of feel like I'm a little guilty of. Um, I I thought it was an okay movie. I mean, when I think of Supergirl, for some reason her face doesn't do anything for me. I mean, she's been in, I think she was in House of Dragon, the major character in that. So it could just mean used to seeing her in that, and then seeing this, I kind of feel like her acting was, maybe she was trying too hard, so that was kind of a downer for me. Um, I heard a lot of things that the dog was in the movie a lot, which I didn't think it was. You saw the dog, in the beginning of the movie, at the end of the movie. So that didn't really phase me because I didn't want it to be another, you know, animal movie. So I didn't think that was the case at all. Jason playing Lobo was interesting. I thought he did a decent job. I kind of felt like his part of his plays that he kind of plays since Aquaman, similar but different. Not to the point, one is good, one is bad. Just how he was portraying the character itself, I kind of remind me of, okay, yeah, I can see this guy playing Aquaman too, which is that's kind of all I'm going to say right now. I'm gonna let him.
So I enjoyed the movie. I thought this was a really good Supergirl movie because I think about the one that came out years ago. That one was,
So
yeah, it wasn't a good movie. It was just nice to see Supergirl on the big screen. Um, I thought he did a great job as Supergirl. And for some reason, when you think of Jason Momoa, he is a much better Lobo. I thought he did great as Aquaman, but he did really good as Lobo. He pretty much was that character. Now, the other person that was a major part in this movie would have been the actual bad guy who is Kryn of the Yellow Hills. So they have an interesting take on his look. He is very powerful. Um, I have to say that this movie is pretty close to the actual book that it's based on. So I thought that was pretty cool. I really think when I think about this movie and Superman 2025, this one has a lot of action in it. I thought the fight scenes were well done, and it was really cool. They slowed it down a little so you can see the action, but I figured, because she was going from a red sun to a yellow sun, back to a red sun, back to a yellow sun, so that they had to change how she performed throughout the movie. But all in all, Friend was fantastic. The guy that played this role, he was really good at what he did. The storyline I enjoy quite a bit. It has its sad moments. It even gives you a history on Supergirl without being too preachy or anything like that. So I thought that was fantastic. Again, um, Lobo was quite good in this. I wish he would have whistled for his bike. I thought that would have been kind of cool to see him do that. But, he was pretty much no joke in this when he was just doing what he does. So this was definitely how Lobo is as a character when you see it in this. Um, I there's some critiques I would say. Just certain things that were going on because, she and I know she is upset because when you think about Supergirl and then you think about Superman, Clark was born on Krypton. He was just a baby when he was sent to Earth. He knows nothing about Krypton. He's never experienced anything on Krypton except for his birth, and then he was sent to Earth. Where this one is a little bit of a change because Kara is usually older than Clark. Um, she's lived a life on Krypton. She was raised by her parents before everything happened, and then she was sent to Earth to take care of Clark or Kal-El. Um, and then she gets lost and arrives on Earth after. This one, she was actually born after him and then sent to Earth just to be with him, but not to take care of him. So that was a little bit of a difference when it comes to this story. She finds the dog, takes the dog because it was going, you know, just because everything else was going on. So this is her only friend. And then she comes to Earth, which is really cool. So, I thought it was a good story. I have no issues with it. I know a lot of people said, I've seen people say that they liked it, and then I've seen people say that they're not watching it. I think when I think about movies nowadays, it seems like people are getting, and I'm going to have to say it, it's going to be fatigue for superhero movies. We're not, a lot of people aren't going to the movies anymore to see superhero movies because they feel like, well, they're going to reboot it. They're going to do something new, blah, blah, blah. Now, what I said for Supergirl, we have not had a Supergirl movie in 42 years. The last one, everybody went to see it because they used some of the characters from Superman. This one, we actually get Superman in the movie with her, just cameos, but at least he was there. So you know that this is a story that is in cahoots with the Superman movie. It is a much better written story. The plot was way better, and as I said, it has a lot of action, so I love that. Anything else you want to say about it?
I do agree with Mark. I do feel like it had more action than Superman. So 100% agree. And I like the backstory of her backstory in this one. I mean, only thing I know about from Supergirl is from the '84 movie. You know, a few times I think she was in Justice League or the Superman cartoon, something, and then she had her own TV show that was canceled a couple of years ago. So that's really all I knew about her backstory. I know when we walked out of the theater, I asked Mark, "Hey, I always thought this," and he was like, "Okay, kind of true, but remember, I guess it's kind of alternate, I guess." And he said, "For this story, this is how it is." I said, "Okay, that's what they do now. Everything is altered. It could have happened. It could have went right. It could have went left, and this is how it's made." But I did like her backstory in this. I also felt like the few cameos that Superman had, he was very naive just in life itself. So I can see where she was a little frustrated with, going to Earth when she did, learning what she, learned, being the only person with, other than Clark. And like I said, there's a few things that nitpick. I don't really want to discuss it here just because it's barely been out for a week. But, if we decide to revisit this movie later, there's a few things that I would nitpick it all. Overall, 1 out of 5, I think I'll probably give it maybe 325, 350. Just because I did like her backstory. I did like the fight scene. But that's for also because I just nitpicked some of the stuff up there. I was just like, okay, why is this going on? But that's just me. I love my movies. I love my superhero movies. And, they don't make these movies like they used to. So I want to see perfection. I know I'm not going to see, but because sometimes I do get a little disappointment because I don't have that. And it's probably the reason why I nitpick it.
Yeah, I would have to say I would give it a 4 out of 5 stars because like I said, I like the story. Um, it is pretty close to what we got in the comic books. Um, I know for some reason, people had the assumption it was more about the dog again and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yes, it is a story,
Friendship.
friendship, but it's not. I wouldn't even say the focus. Yeah, the focus. She has what I would say is the dog is her guiding light for doing what she does in the movie, but it is not the focus of the movie.
No.
So, and again, I love watching Lobo, just do Lobo, so that's pretty cool. And just seeing her when she does power up, and what she did in the fight scenes were so cool. I really enjoyed that, and I would love to see where this story goes in the future. I know some people aren't watching it for whatever reason that they feel they're not going to go see it. I think you should give it an opportunity because it's better than you think. And I know, when I think about it, DC has some of the greatest stories out there. They do a great job with their comics, with their cartoon movies. This is just a live action version of a comic book. And I think if you give it an opportunity, you would enjoy it just as much. Yeah, there are some things that you can nitpick, but they're never going to get everything like you want. They're just going to get exactly what they're trying to put out there, and this is a great story. So, as I said, we've seen it twice. I think it was a good story. I took my goddaughter to see it because she watched Superman with me last month, and then she got excited about seeing this, and she during the movie, even though this was our second time, she was like, "Oh my God, that's happening!" She just kept talking about what was going on, and she was so thrilled to see this movie. And I think if you have a child, let them see Superman, then let them watch this. I guarantee you they're going to love it. And if you watch it through a child's eyes, you're definitely going to enjoy it more than I think you give it an opportunity to. Anything you want to say in closing?
Yeah, I mean, a child when my goddaughter is 9. I think anything younger, there were some, scenes with, her drinking that, maybe a young child maybe should not have seen. I mean, they can just watch that on regular TV now. But overall, I have to admit, I think she was quieter in this movie than when we saw Toy Story 5. So I thought that was interesting, where, I think she was a little bored with that movie, even though it totally explains her to a T when it comes to electronics. But this one, she enjoyed it, so that was nice to see when she was, oh my god, you know, from a 9-year-old point of view. So definitely go and see it. I mean, once again, I say this pretty much every movie. If you don't go to the movies and see it, then we're not gonna have a theater. And of course, they need to make money to see, a sequel, to see the special effects. That's definitely free. So give it a try. Don't hate it on it because of what you read. See it and come to your own opinion.
Yeah, I have to agree. Yeah, definitely make up your own mind. Don't just go in there with preconceived notion about what it is, because I'm probably sure that's not what you're going to get when you see it. So I think that's going to be it. Next time, I'm trying to think of what we're going to be going to see. Uh,
Well, right now, set in stone is Spider-Man at the end of the month, but
there's quite a few movies coming
a
out.
lot of movies in there. We just haven't decided what we're
Moana comes out next week.
going to see.
Minions came out today. So we do have a few movies down the pike. We will let you know exactly what we think about those movies. Anything else you want to say in closing?
No, have a safe 4th of July. Drink a lot of water. Stay hydrated. Stay in the air if you can.
All right. Till next time.